Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, we're joined here live at Autodesk University 2019 with Mike Smell, Product Manager for Fusion 360, focused on generative design and machine learning.
So I'm calling out this title. This is, really, Mike? What's the deal?
Those are big words.
They are big words, and a lot of them.
And in comparison to James, you're a very big person.
Does this look awkward?
I didn't realize how tall you were in comparison to James.
Stand up straight, Mike.
So we've known each other for quite a while.
I know, you guys are homies, right?
I'm seriously like shoulder height.
And the funny thing is,
you look like a child
I think you guys
compared
are
to him.
the third or fourth people that have asked me about this height thing.
How tall are you?
6'3", which is not.
You are not
like,
6'3".
Oh, I am.
Oh.
Driver's license says it.
Mine says 5'9", so.
Right. And mine says I'm older than 21, so. Okay,
Alrighty.
Before we go on, Mike, thank you for joining us. But we want to, make sure you're comfortable here. We have a little trivia for you. You ready for some Autodesk trivia?
Autodesk trivia.
Let's see how you do.
I'm going to warn you ahead of time. Andrew took this, killed it. Cooper and Fallon, pretty good. You, I'm a little scared.
I am too.
All right. Who's considered to be the founder of Autodesk, along with roughly 17 of his closest friends?
That would have been John Walker.
Ooh.
Did you cheat?
No.
That is such.
I remember that one from when you Google Autodesk.
Yeah.
It comes up in the Google.
Okay.
About
Well
thing.
done. Okay.
So,
maybe he'll do better than I thought.
We'll see. So what was Autodesk's original name supposed to be?
Well, what it was.
I have no idea.
Marin Software Partners.
I know you're a big AutoCAD fan. That wasn't really true. What were the project names of AutoCAD 9, 10, and 11?
They're probably old. Those projects are probably older than I am.
They probably are, give or take. It was albums by the Beatles. The White Album, Abbey Road, and Let It Be. And I know you probably love the Beatles too, so that means nothing to you, huh?
What company was acquired where the then future CEO Carl Bass worked at? This one's always on the tip of everybody's tongue. They think they know it.
I'm not going to pretend I don't know it.
Ithaca Software.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, he's a Cornell guy. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. You might get these two.
Maybe.
What was the project name under which Autodesk Inventor launched way back in 1999?
I think I do know this one. I think I was Rubicon.
It
Very
was.
good.
Well done. I feel like all of us are like on the same page in that respect.
Is the most popular STEM or STEAM podcast run by Autodesk employees?
Unprofessional engineering.
Nailed it.
Yeah, I don't know why you even questioned it,
Everybody
but yes.
seems to be getting that one correct.
All right, lightning round.
Lightning round, all about acquisitions.
What building tech company was acquired in 2002?
Is that what is now Revit?
It is.
Accurate. What was acquired in 2006 that has the FBX file format?
Is that Maya?
Everybody.
Maybe
Alias.
my answer is wrong. I feel like everyone getting it wrong. I think it's only right that I ask this. Often considered the greatest acquisition by Autodesk, what simulation product was acquired December 17th of 2008?
Plasotech?
Oh my goodness gracious. Al Gore.
Your date's wrong.
No, that's the official date.
Oh, the official date.
Yeah, I think.
I thought you were going to send me a softball for Al Gore, but I didn't want to say that because. And the date was wrong.
This is some of the best talent.
When do you
here.
think the Al Gore date was?
Well,
December
I tracked the January
15th or January 15th.
Oh.
the January date,
Okay.
which was our official start date.
It was our
so.
yeah, right.
In 2011, what website and platform was acquired where users can share ideas and do DIY projects?
Instructables.
Very good.
What giant acquisition went down in 2014 of a UK-based CAD CAM software package?
Delcam.
Well done. You finished strong, and I appreciate that.
Not too shabby.
All right, let's get into the real questions here. How about that? We're going to start off with a tough one. Most importantly, we have to make this clear. All three of us live in beautiful Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
We do.
Yet, we only ever see each other in Las Vegas. Why is that, Mike?
I don't have a good excuse.
I'm going to say Mike is not very hospitable.
True.
And has never invited you or I anywhere.
That's true. I haven't talked to Mike or seen Mike outside of Las Vegas in years.
And you guys guys are boys.
I've even stolen one of his friends from him, who I hang out with more often than I hang out with Mike.
And you probably also hang out with him more than I do.
Probably also true.
Two kids have put a damper on things, but
Yeah.
I love them to death. But they take a lot of time.
I'm sure that's the case.
So, speaking of AU, you're a product manager. What
Yep.
does that look like for someone at AU? Because like me and James, we come here and we goof off for about 3 or 4 days and get paid for it.
Yeah.
I imagine that you goofing off for 3 or 4 days at AU probably wouldn't work. So what's your schedule like? What's it look like for you?
Well, I sort of start out with that intent in mind. And
To goof off?
Yeah, but it sort of never works out that way. So this year, I had a pretty big hand in planning out all the generative design classes for the whole week. I'm teaching a couple of those, doing some user feedback sessions on some of our workflows. Had a customer lunch today, have a customer dinner tonight. So,
would you say you had a big hand in that because you are the product manager for Fusion 360, focused on generative design and machine learning?
that is the exact reason.
Okay, good to know. So I know you're teaching 3 different classes, and one of them you're doubling up on as well?
That's right. So this morning we did a roundtable about machine learning in Fusion 360. Had a great turnout for that, great audience. Teamed up with Morgan Fabian and Thomas Davies from our research teams focused on machine learning. So that was a really good event. We did our generative design roadmap. Brian Frank and I did that today. Actually, during the main stage keynote, we were worried we weren't going to get too much turnout, but we actually had about 60 people in there.
Nice.
So
Wow.
that was really exciting as well. And then tomorrow and Thursday, we've got a roundtable session with some users looking at the inventor to Fusion 360, any CAD workflow specifically on generative design.
That should be a really good one.
So-
I know that's something that's top of mind for a lot of people.
Yep.
A quick follow-up to that one. So I know you have the Idea Station, is that what it's called?
Mhm.
But then you also have events like this where you have all of these customers here that you can interact with. How does the information that you get here then factor into the direction that Fusion's going to be going in the future?
Well, I would say, we look at feedback from customers in all sorts of ways. We've got a lot of guys on the ground every day talking to customers about Fusion 360, about generative design. Because generative design is pretty new, we still run pretty tight with all those guys and are talking every week. So we've got a pretty good bead on what's happening in the field, and are putting those things into the product. I would say, when we come to events like this, we had a nice roadmap session this morning. We had some surveys to follow along with that, and we get good marks on the things that we're doing in the product. So events like this, it's really nice to get some validation of the things that we think we hear from folks using it every day and stuff like that.
Okay. So you clearly have the coolest part of Fusion, generative. But by far, of all the things that are in Fusion, I think it's definitely the coolest. So when you think about the adoption of generative specifically within Fusion, so how's that been going, and are there plans to help with that adoption? I know there's some programs that have launched just recently to kind of help with some of that. Could you talk about a little bit of that?
Yeah, so we have a lot of different vectors going on there. One is obviously this month we're running the free generative design campaign. So for all the entitlements that have access to generative design, they get unfettered access. Run as many solves, download as many outcomes as you can this month.
Download as many.
I might start doing this.
All free. Some of the other things that we're doing are, kind of touch on a bunch of different vectors. We've got a really great generative design certification that's out on Coursera that folks can take a look at. Really deep content, end-to-end workflow. That's really exciting stuff. The technology as a whole is, in aggregate, it's new, but individually, you think about core CAD modeling, core simulation, core engineering decision making, all those things are pretty well understood. It's just when folks take a look at it in aggregate, it takes a little bit of time to say, well, how can I actually fit this into my current design process? So I would say, adoption's moving kind of as we would expect. Like anything, you want it to be the exponential growth, but we're not there yet. But we're the engagements that we do have, we're seeing really good success.
Okay.
We've got a bunch of good customer stories.
And speaking of adoption, I asked this question to Greg Fallon, who handles a lot of the product design and manufacturing collection roadmap and strategy. And I asked him the question, so how would you talk to an Inventor user to get them to run their first generative study with Fusion? Like what's your tagline or your elevator speech for that person who's never touched Fusion, but yet we want them to try out generative?
Well, I think the most important thing to tell an Inventor user is, through the collections, most all of them have it. So, we found plenty of Inventor users that don't even realize that they have access to Fusion 360. I would say the next bit is, a lot of what the generative setup is developing the design space, which you can do in Inventor. So there's not a ton of the workflow that requires you to be outside of Inventor as far as like the main parts, defining loads and constraints and manufacturing methods and things like that. It's all pretty lightweight stuff in comparison to developing the design space in a way that like you're taking out the key parts of your assembly that where you need to have material, and you're taking out the key parts of the assembly where you can't have material. So, I think
all your preserves and obstacles can be defined inside of Inventor if you want to do it that way.
And so you can stick with pretty much all of your familiar workflows. I would say the other thing is if Inventor users are comfortable with the stress analysis inside of Inventor or Inventor simulation, Inventor Nastran, if they're familiar with that, then they already know how to use generative design.
Okay.
So there was a really big announcement that just went out today, early this morning. But really, the news broke right here
on the show
on Unprofessional Engineering.
It did.
Your go-to source for all tech news.
I don't know about that.
Anyways, the announcement was that ANSYS and Autodesk are teaming up. And in particular, I think it has to do with generative design and taking that into, is it ANSYS Mechanical?
Yep.
And doing some advanced simulation on those parts. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, sure can. So that's been a project that we've been working on for a while. I've had the opportunity to be engaged with that from kind of the ground up. So it is, as you said, it's focused on generative design outcomes. So when we look at the workflow inside of Fusion today for validating generative design outcomes, we essentially package up the load, constraint, and material information on our outcomes. So if you go into Fusion Simulation Workspace, it's set up and ready to go. You can just press run. We've basically built that same workflow for when you come into the Fusion Simulation Workspace. Instead of pressing solve in Fusion, you can say solve in ANSYS, and it'll go off, create the workbench studies, put it in Mechanical, and then it's ready to. It's just as simple as pressing solve in ANSYS Mechanical. So really great innovation that we have there for allowing these engineering companies who may not be Autodesk simulation users in whatever form or fashion that is, they're Inventor users. They've got a bunch of standards around ANSYS. They can continue to use those things. So again, generative design supplementing their workflow, not trying to replace or change anything there. So this is really about collaboration and enabling people to access generative, but without getting into replacing their whole ecosystem.
Gotcha. And it also gives them access to some physics that they just might not have that ANSYS specifically has.
Yeah, access to physics that we don't have, absolutely. The other thing that I think is probably the most important is we get a ton of customers taking a look at generative design, solving complex problems that have hundreds of different loads, 10s, 20s of load cases. That takes a time investment to set up in generative. There's no reason to throw that away when you need to do your post-validation work. So now those models will fall right out into ANSYS, and they can reuse all that work they did in Fusion.
Cool.
So how do you stay on top of technology trends? You're in a cool field. You're working on really cool stuff. Do you read books? Do you listen to podcasts? Do you follow anything on social media? Or do you just kind of live in a cave and be angry all the time?
He clearly doesn't listen to podcasts.
Yeah, well,
at least ours.
True friend.
So how do I stay on top? Well, I would say one of our biggest feedback loops is, like I said, we've got a team of subject matter experts who are with our customers every day that are trying to do stuff with our tools, have access to competitive tools. So that's one good vector for us. The other is most of these competitors pretty active in social media, YouTube, webinars. We watch those just, like their customers or their prospective customers would watch. So, we've got a watchful eye on a bunch of different angles as far as competitive goes.
Yeah, so speaking of competitive, a lot of Autodesk competitors have recently started getting into the generative space as well. Have you seen anything from them that has impressed you?
Well, sure, and in different ways. So, a big part of what we do with generative design is around design exploration, manufacturing methods, and then ultimately having these CAD-ready outcomes that fall out of the system that you can go put toolpaths on or start to do your print setups and things like that. From a competitive point of view, it seems like most of all of our competitors are doing slight variations. Like some are more focused on additive, some are more focused on real time, some are more focused on being able to get lattices into their generative. So I would say when we look at the market, while we're all doing similar stuff at like the foundational level, like our delivery vehicle of design exploration, manufacturing aware, connected to CAD in like full fidelity, end-to-end workflow, there's really not anybody that's doing that same exact thing just yet.
Gotcha. So speaking of cool things, what's the coolest generative project that you're allowed to talk about? There might be some things that you've seen that maybe at a customer site that you can't share. James and I got to talk with the JPL folks last year, the Mars lander. We thought that was amazing. But other than that one, what would you say is some of the coolest projects that you've been involved with?
Yeah, so I would say the coolest things that I've come across are the ones that are super practical. So this summer, we spent a lot of development resource on building out our 2.5 axis machining constraints. And we released those midsummer, and then those just went to production, fully commercial production here in this last Fusion update in October. We did a story with one of our Fusion CAM customers, partnered up in MJK. They do high performance motorcycle components. And when they posted some of the work that came out of generative on social media, some of the comments were, "Tell me what's generative about this at all."
Yeah.
And
right.
Quite honestly, that was the entire intent of what we did. Like, we want generative to be really good at doing exotic parts for additive manufacturing. Perfect. But we also want generative to be a solution for, everyday manufacturing methods that you can do on your Haas.
Yeah, making practical parts.
Yeah, making practical parts. Absolutely.
I love that those comments were supposed to be in a negative fashion, and it's like that's just totally validating the work that was done to make it happen. We were actually talking to Hoop Dog, close friend, a long-time listener of the show, and Mr. Fallon yesterday about the same thing and about how adding those constraints was just something that never crossed my mind as a way to make these parts feasible and reasonable to create, and it's just like a total game changer in my mind.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride. We did a lot of collaboration with our friends in Birmingham in the advanced manufacturing facility, so it's really tuned to provide highly manufacturable outcomes. So really proud of the work that the teams did on those pieces.
That's awesome.
So we need to wrap this thing up a little bit here to get you back to your Fusion community. I know you have a lot of people to meet with still, but one last question. What kind of scoop can you give us for something cool to keep an eye out for in Fusion, or even something cool coming up at AU that we might want to be looking out for?
Man, I think you guys stole the scoops, right? You guys had the first break on the ANSYS integration, which I think is, that's a major scoop. So if anybody is wanting to learn more about that, I really encourage them to see the D&M keynote tomorrow. We're going to have a little bit more going on there. So that's really exciting. And I think the biggest one to leave you guys with is the free month of generative design for, from now until the end of the year is just a game changer. We hear a lot of people want to learn it. They're afraid to jump in and make that investment. Get out there, try it. It's super fun to use. We've got a lot of good support from our partners. AWS partnered up with us, NVIDIA partnered up with us to make this possible. And we also have, Coursera, our certification, typically their trial I think is 7 days, but they've extended to a 30-day trial to support this promotion specifically. Okay. So, really want to thank all those folks. And
I heard they were just docking your pay to take care of this.
I hope that's not the case, but so yeah, get out there and start doing your generative designs.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Mike, thanks a lot for joining us today. Congratulations on your first time on the show. It's been amazing. Say hi to the wife and kids for me, and I'll see you again next year in Las Vegas.
Will do. I hope you guys have me back.
Thanks, man.
See you guys.